The sun was setting over the small town of Pine Ridge, casting long shadows across the dusty main street. The sky turned orange and purple as day became night. It was a Thursday evening in late summer, and most of the town was quiet. Most people were home with their families or watching TV after a long day of work. But at the edge of town, a small bar called the Western Saloon was just coming to life. The Western Saloon wasn't fancy. It had wooden floors worn smooth by years of boots. Walking across them, old movie posters hung on the walls. Most showed cowboys and gunslingers from films made decades ago. The bar smelled like beer, whiskey, and the burgers that Sam, the cook, made on the grill behind the counter. Clint Eastwood hadn't planned to stop in Pine Ridge. At 94 years old, the famous actor and director was driving back to his home in Carmel. After visiting an old friend in Arizona, his car, a simple but well-maintained truck, needed gas. Then he decided he could use a good meal and maybe a quiet drink. Before finding a hotel for the night, Clint walked slowly into the Western Saloon. He wore jeans, a plain blue shirt, and a brown jacket. A baseball cap sat low over his eyes. He hoped no one would recognize him. After so many years of fame, he had learned to value privacy. His face, lined with age and experience, still carried that famous stern look that had made him a star in so many movies. The bar wasn't crowded. A few locals sat at tables eating dinner or playing cards. Country music played softly from an old jukebox in the corner. Behind the bar stood Mary Johnson, the owner. She was in her 60s, with gray hair tied back in a ponytail and kind eyes that missed nothing. Mary looked up as Clint entered. Her eyes widened slightly in recognition, but she quickly hid her surprise. She had owned the Western Saloon for 25 years and had an unspoken rule: treat everyone the same, famous or not. Evening, Clint said in that familiar raspy voice as he sat on a bar stool. Whiskey neat, and whatever food you recommend. Our burgers are the best in the county. Mary replied with a smile, placing a glass in front of him. Sam makes them with beef from the local ranch. And I won't tell anyone you're here, she added quietly, pouring his drink. Clint nodded gratefully. Appreciate that. A burger sounds good. For about 30 minutes, Clint ate his meal in peace. The burger was indeed excellent. His way, perhaps wondering if the old man at the bar was really who they thought he was. But no one approached him. In a small town like Pine Ridge, people tended to mind their own business. The peaceful evening changed when the rumble of motorcycle engines filled the air. The sound grew louder until it stopped right outside the bar. The door swung open, and 6 men and 2 women walked in. They wore leather jackets with patches that read Road Warriors MC. Their boots were heavy on the wooden floor as they entered, laughing and talking loudly. Everyone in the bar tensed. The Road Warriors had a bad reputation in this part of the state. They weren't the worst of biker gangs, but they caused trouble wherever they went. They took up 3 tables near the pool table, pushing them together without asking. Hey lady, 8 beers over here and make it quick, shouted their leader, a big man with a thick beard and tattooed arms. His name, Patch Reed Spike. Mary frowned, but began filling glasses from the tap. Clint continued eating his burger, his back to the bikers, hoping to finish his meal without any problems. For a while, it seemed like the night would pass without incident. The bikers drank their beer and started a game of pool. They were loud, but keeping to themselves. Clint was almost done with his meal when he felt someone staring at him. He looked up to see one of the younger bikers pointing at him and whispering to Spike. Spike turned and looked at Clint. His eyes narrowed, then widened in recognition. A slow smile spread across his face, not a friendly one. Well, 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 Spike said loudly, walking toward the bar. Boys, do you know who we have? Here, it's Dirty Harry himself. The other bikers turned to look. Whispers spread through the bar as the locals realized that the rumors were true. Clint Eastwood really was sitting among them. Mr. Eastwood, Spike continued, leaning against the bar next to Clint. I grew up watching your movies. My dad was a big fan. His tone was mocked respectful with an edge that suggested trouble was coming. Clint didn't respond. He took another bite of his burger, chewed slowly, and washed it down with a sip of whiskey. This seemed to annoy Spike. What's wrong? Too good to talk to regular folks like us? Maybe you're just too old now, huh? Can't remember your famous lines anymore. Mary stepped forward. That's enough. Hey, old man, say the line. You know, make my day. Come on, that's what you're famous for, right? One of the female bikers with short red hair and heavy makeup laughed. Maybe he can't hear you, Spike. Old people get deaf, you know. Clint finally looked up, his eyes meeting Spike's. Even at 94, that famous Eastwood stare could make most men step back. His voice was quiet but clear when he spoke. I'm just trying to enjoy my meal in peace. Oh, listen to that, mocked another biker, a skinny man with a shaved head. He's trying to be tough. Newsflash, Grampy, you're not in a movie now. Those guns you used were props. This is real life. The whole bar had gone silent. The locals looked uncomfortable, but no one stepped in. The Road Warriors had a reputation for violence, and no one wanted to get hurt. Spike put his hand on Clint's shoulder. Come on, movie star. Just say the line for us. Do you feel lucky, punk? Say it. Clint calmly removed Spike's hand from his shoulder. I'd appreciate it if you'd step back and let me finish my meal. This calm response seemed to make Spike angrier. Or what? What are you going to do about it, old man? You going to draw your gun? He laughed, looking around at his friends for approval. Oh wait, you don't have one, because you're just an actor. A has-been who played tough guys, but probably never threw a real punch in his life. Mary tried again. That's enough. I want no trouble in my place. Stay out of this, lady, Spike warned her. This is between me and the movie star. Clint remained calm, but his eyes hardened. He had faced down plenty of bullies in his 94 years, both on and off screen. He slowly stood up from his bar stool. Despite his age, he was still tall and carried himself with dignity. Son, he said quietly to Spike, your mother would be ashamed of how you're behaving right now. Spike's face turned red with anger. Don't you talk about my mother? He grabbed Clint by the front of his shirt, pulling him forward. Several locals half froze from their seats, ready to intervene, but afraid of the other bikers who were now gathering around. Mary reached under the bar, where she kept a baseball bat for emergencies. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. No one noticed when the door of the Western Saloon opened again, and another man walked in. He was in his 80s, short gray hair and a neatly trimmed beard. He wore jeans, boots, and a simple button-down shirt. Despite his age, he moved with the fluid grace of someone in perfect physical condition. His eyes took in the scene in an instant. Clint Eastwood being held by his shirt by a biker almost. Half his age, surrounded by the man's gang. While the locals watched in fearful silence, Chuck Norris had arrived, and the night was about to take an unexpected turn. The bar went quiet as Chuck Norris walked toward the group. His steps were calm and measured. Even at 84 years old, he moved like a man who knew exactly what his body could do. The Road Warriors were too focused on Clint to notice the new arrival. I think you should let go of my friend, Chuck said in a calm, even voice. Spike turned, still holding Clint's shirt in his fist. His eyes widened in surprise. No way, he said. Chuck Norris, is this some kind of joke? Are we being filmed or something? He looked around as if searching for cameras. The other bikers turned to look. Some laughed, but a few looked nervous. Even people who had never seen a Chuck Norris movie knew who he was. His reputation as a martial arts master went far beyond his films. "This isn't a movie set," Chuck said, "and that's my friend you're manhandling. I'm asking politely. Let him go." Spike hesitated, then slowly released his grip on Clint's shirt. But he didn't back away. Instead, he puffed out his chest, trying to look bigger than he was. "Well, if it isn't the Karate Kid, all grown up and old." "What are you now? 80? 90? Shouldn't you be in a nursing home?" Chuck smiled slightly. It wasn't a friendly smile. Age is just a number. Respect is something else entirely. Something you seem to be lacking. Mary behind the bar watched with wide eyes. The locals in the bar stared in amazement. It wasn't every day you saw two Hollywood legends in a small-town bar facing down a biker gang. One man near the door quietly took out his phone and started recording Clint, straightened his shirt. "Chuck," he nodded in greeting, as calm as if they had met for coffee. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I was passing through," Chuck replied. "Saw your truck outside. Thought I'd stop in and say hello." He turned back to Spike. "Didn't expect to find you in trouble." Spike laughed. "Trouble? The only one in trouble here is you two old-timers. In case you haven't noticed, there are 8 of us and 2 of you. We're not exactly in our 90s. 8 against 2, Chuck said. "It seems unfair." He paused. "For you?" The skinny biker with the shaved head stepped forward. "You think this is funny, old man? Those kung fu moves only work in movies with special effects." Chuck shook his head. "First, it's not kung fu. I practice karate, tang soo do, judo, and several other disciplines. Second, I've been training since before you were born. Third, I'm not looking for a fight. I'm just suggesting you show some respect and move along." The female biker with red hair laughed loudly. "Listen to him, giving us a martial arts lesson. What's next? Gonna tell us about the good old days?" Clint, who had been quiet, spoke up. "You know, when I was filming westerns, the stuntmen taught me something important. The loudest ones in the saloon are usually the ones who can't back it up when the shooting starts." Spike's face turned red again. "Are you calling me a coward, old man?" "I'm making an observation," Clint said simply. One of the other bikers, a tall man with a long beard, grabbed a pool cue. "Let's see how tough these movie stars really are," Chuck sighed. "That's really not necessary." Mary Johnson stepped out. From behind the bar, baseball bat in hand. "Not in my place," she warned. "Take it outside, or don't take it at all." Spike looked at her, then at his gang, then back at the 2 aging stars. "You know what? Let's do that. Outside, right now." Yeah. Pointed at Clint and Chuck. "You two think you're so tough? Prove it. In the parking lot. No cameras, no special effects." The local man who had been recording quickly put his phone away, not wanting to get caught. Chuck looked at Clint. "We don't have to do this," Clint shrugged. "Might be educational for them." The bikers laughed and started heading for the door. Spike turned back to make sure the 2 older men were following. "Come on, legends. Show us what you got." As the bikers filed out, Mary came over to Clint and Chuck. "You don't have to go out there," she said quietly. "I can call Sheriff Bill. He's only 5 minutes away." "Thank you, ma'am," Chuck said politely. "But I think we can handle this. Been a while since I've been in a good bar fight," Clint added, with a hint of his famous half-dash smile. The locals watched in amazement as the 2 men followed the bikers outside. Most of them got up and moved to the windows to watch. A few went outside, keeping a safe distance. The parking lot was lit by a single street lamp and the neon sign of the Western Saloon. The bikers stood in a loose circle, some cracking their knuckles, others just watching with amused expressions. Their motorcycles were parked in a row nearby. Clint and Chuck stood side by side, looking calm and relaxed. They might have been 2 old friends out for an evening stroll instead of facing down a biker gang half their age. "Last chance to walk away," Chuck offered. "We go our separate ways, no hard feelings." Spike spat on the ground. "Not happening, Grandpa. You 2 need to be taught a lesson about the real world." He looked at his gang. "Don't hurt them too bad. They're senior citizens after all." The skinny biker with the shaved head moved first, rushing toward Chuck with his fists raised. What happened next seemed impossible to the watching crowd. The biker threw a punch, but Chuck wasn't there anymore. He had stepped to the side with surprising speed. The biker stumbled forward, off balance. Chuck put out one foot, and the biker tripped, falling face first into the dirt. At the same time, another biker went for Clint. Despite his age, Clint had always been tough and knew how to handle himself. He blocked the punch with his forearm and countered with a short, sharp jab to the biker's stomach. The man doubled over, gasping for breath. "I did my own stunts for years," Clint said mildly. "Picked up a few things." The female biker with red hair pulled out a small knife. "Enough playing around," she snarled, advancing on Chuck. Chuck shook his head. "That's not a good idea, miss." She lunged forward, slashing the knife through the air. Chuck's hand moved in a blur, catching her wrist. With a simple twist, the knife fell from her fingers. Another movement, and she found herself sitting on the ground. Wondering how she got there, two more bikers rushed Clint from different directions. Despite being 94, the legendary actor moved with surprising agility, sidestepped one, letting the man's momentum carry him into his friend. Both bikers collided and fell in a tangle of limbs. Spike couldn't believe what he was seeing. These old men were making his gang look like fools. With a roar of anger, he charged at Chuck, throwing a wild haymaker punch. Chuck caught his arm, used Spike's own momentum, and sent him flying through the air. Spike landed hard on his back, the wind knocked out of him. The long-bearded biker swung his pool cue at Clint. Clint caught it mid-swing, yanked it forward. When the biker stumbled toward him, Clint clipped him on the jaw with an elbow. The man went down like a felled tree. In less than a minute, all 8 road warriors were on the ground. None were seriously hurt, but all were shocked and humiliated. Chuck and Clint stood in the middle of the fallen bikers, neither even breathing. Hard. The locals who had been watching broke into spontaneous applause. Someone let out a whoop of joy. The man with the phone had started recording again, capturing the whole thing. Spike sat up, rubbing his back where he had landed. He looked at his defeated gang, then up at the two legends standing over him. For the first time that night, there was a hint of respect in his eyes. "How?" he asked simply. "You're both ancient." Chuck extended a hand to help him up. "Age means experience. We've had a lot of that." Clint nodded. "It's not about how hard you can hit. It's about knowing when and where to hit. And when not." 2. Spike hesitated, then took Chuck's offered hand and got to his feet. The other bikers were standing up too, dusting themselves off, nursing bruised bodies and egos. "Maybe," Spike admitted grudgingly, "we've been watching the wrong movies." The parking lot of the Western Saloon was quiet now. The dust was settling. The local people who had watched the fight were still there, talking in excited whispers. They couldn't believe what they had just seen. 2 men in their 80s and 90s had taken down 8 tough bikers without even breaking a sweat. Mary Johnson came out of the bar, still holding her baseball bat. She looked at the bikers who were now picking themselves up off the ground. Some rubbed sore arms or jaws. Others just stood there, looking confused about what had just happened. "Everyone all right?" Mary asked, looking first at Clint and Chuck, then at the bikers. "We're fine, ma'am," Chuck answered politely. "Just a misunderstanding that got cleared up." Clint nodded. "No real harm done." Spike, the leader of the road warriors, was brushing dirt off his leather jacket. His face was red, but not from anger now. He was embarrassed. He looked at his fellow bikers, then at the 2 older men who had just taught them a lesson they wouldn't forget. "Look," Spike said, his voice quieter than before. That was ... impressive. "I've never seen anything like it." The shaved head touched a small cut on his lip. "How did you move so fast?" he asked Chuck. "I never even saw you dodge." Chuck smiled slightly. "Practice. 50 years of it." The female biker with red hair picked up her knife from the ground and put it away. She looked at Chuck with new respect in her eyes. "My brother took karate lessons when we were kids. He always talked about you. Said you were the real deal. Guess he was right." "Your brother sounds like a smart man," Chuck said. "Maybe you should listen to him more." Mary Johnson looked at the bikers. "Are we done with the fighting now? Because if not, I'm calling Sheriff Bill." Spike raised his hands. "We're done. No more trouble." He looked at Clint. Sorry about what happened inside. Was just showing off from my friends. Didn't mean any real disrespect. Clint studied Spike for a moment, then nodded slowly. Apology accepted. But you might want to think about how you treat people. Famous or not, old or young. Respect goes a long way in this world. The locals started to go back inside the bar. Excitement was over, but they would have stories to tell for years to come. The night Clint Eastwood and Chuck Norris took down, the road warriors in the parking lot of the Western Saloon would become a local legend. Mary turned to go back inside too, but stopped and looked back at the two Hollywood legends. Your food's getting cold, Mr. Eastwood. And Mr. Norris, can I get you something to eat or drink? On the house, of course? Chuck smiled. A coffee would be nice. Thank you. The tall biker with the long beard who had tried to hit Clint with a pool cue stepped forward. Hey, before you go back in, can we maybe get a picture with you guys? No one's going to believe this story otherwise. Clint and Chuck looked at each other, then Clint shrugged. Why not? The bikers gathered around the two older men. From the bar who had been recording the fight came forward with his phone. I can take it for you, he offered. Spike stood next to Clint, still looking a bit uncomfortable but clearly excited. The other bikers arranged themselves around Chuck and Clint. Someone suggested they do tough poses, but Chuck shook his head. Just a regular picture, he said. We don't need to show off. The man took several photos, then showed them to the group. In the pictures, the two legends stood calmly in the middle of the biker gang. Despite their age, both men looked strong and confident. The bikers looked like excited fans meeting their heroes. Thanks, Spike said, looking at the photos. My dad was a big fan of both of you guys. He's not going to believe this. Chuck nodded. Tell your father we said hello. The biker with the long beard looked at his phone. It's getting late. We should head out. Spike nodded. Yeah, we've got a long ride ahead of us. He turned to Clint and Chuck. Sorry again for the trouble. No hard feelings, Chuck said. Just remember, real strength isn't about intimidating others. It's about controlling yourself and treating people with respect. The bikers got on their motorcycles. Before starting his bike, Spike looked at Clint. My dad has all your movies, the westerns, the Dirty Harry films. He watches them all the time. Says they don't make men like that anymore. Clint gave one of his famous half smiles. Tell your dad there are still good men out there. He just needs to make sure his son grows up to be one of them. Spike thought about this for a moment, then nodded. He started his motorcycle, and the road warriors rode off into the night, much quieter than when they had arrived. Clint and Chuck watched them go, then turned and walked back into the bar. The locals inside broke into applause when they entered. Mary had their food and drinks waiting at a corner table, away from the windows where they could have some privacy. That was something else, she said as they sat down. I've never seen anything like it. It's just an average Thursday night, Clint said with a hint of humor in his eyes. Chuck took a sip of his coffee. So, Clint, what brings you to Pine Ridge? Last I heard, you were working on a new film. Just finished it last month, Clint replied. Was visiting an old friend in Arizona. Decided to drive back instead of fly. Gives me time to think. He took a bite of his now cold burger. What about you? Thought you were living in Texas these days. I am, Chuck said. But my grandson is starting college in California next week. It's driving out to help him get settled. Mary brought over fresh food for Clint to replace his cold meal. I still can't believe what I just saw, she said. 8 young men, and you two handled them like it was nothing. Not nothing, Chuck corrected her. I'll be feeling it tomorrow. Not as young as I used to be. None of us are, Clint agreed. But age has its benefits. Experience. Patience. Knowing when to fight and when to walk away. A young man from one of the tables came over. He looked nervous. Excuse me, Mr. Eastwood, Mr. Norris. I don't want to bother you during your meal, but my grandfather is a huge fan of both of you. Would it be possible to get your autographs for him? His birthday is next week, and it would mean the world too. Him, Clint, and Chuck exchanged glances. Then Chuck smiled. Of course. What's your grandfather's name? George, the young man said. George Willis. He was in the military, like you, Mr. Norris. Always talks about how you're one of the few actors who actually knows how to fight for real. Chuck signed a napkin, then passed it to Clint, who added his signature. Tell George thank you for his service, Chuck said as he handed the napkin back. I will. Thank you both so much. As the young man walked away, Clint looked around the bar. The locals were trying not to stare, but it was clear they were excited to have two legends in their midst. Think we'll be able to finish our meal in peace now? He asked Chuck. Chuck smiled. Probably not, but that's okay. It's nice to meet good people. Mary came back to their table. There's a motel down the road if you gentlemen need a place to stay tonight. Nothing fancy, but it's clean. And after what you did, I'm sure Bob, who owns it, will give you the best rooms. Thank you, Clint said. I think I will stay. Been driving all day. Me too, Chuck agreed. We can continue our trip tomorrow. What they didn't know was that their evening was far from over. The news of what had happened was already spreading through town, and soon everyone in Pine Ridge would know that two Hollywood legends were staying the night. And not everyone who would hear about it had good intentions. News travels fast in small towns. By the time Clint Eastwood and Chuck Norris finished their meal at the Western Saloon, most of Pine Ridge knew they were in town. The man who had recorded the fight in the parking lot had sent the video to his friends. Those friends sent it to their friends. Soon, the video was being shared all over town. Bob Wilson, who owned the Pine Ridge Motel, was waiting for them when they arrived. He was a short man in his 50s with thinning hair and a friendly smile. He couldn't stop shaking their hands. It's such an honor to have you both staying here, Bob said, as he gave them the keys to their rooms. My wife Betty won't believe it. She's visiting her sister in Ohio this week. She loves your movies, Mr. Eastwood. Has all the Dirty Harry films on DVD. Just tell her thank you, Clint said politely. The motel was simple, but clean, just as Mary had. Said it had 20 rooms in a long, single-story building. A neon sign out front flickered in the night. Pine trees surrounded the property, giving it a peaceful feeling. I gave you our best rooms, Bob told them. Numbers 15 and 16 at the end. More private there, less noise from the road. Appreciate it, Chuck said. If you need anything, just call the front desk. I live right behind it. What breakfast is? From 6 to 9 in the morning. Nothing fancy, just coffee, juice, and pastries from the local bakery. After thanking Bob, Clint and Chuck went to their rooms. They were tired after the long day and the unexpected excitement at the bar. They agreed to meet for breakfast before continuing their journeys the next day. What they didn't know was that the video of their fight with the road warriors had reached people beyond Pine Ridge. About 20 miles away, in the larger town of River Junction, a group of men watched the video on a phone in a dimly lit bar called the Black Ace. Are you sure that's them? Asked a man named Ray Davis. He was the leader of a gang called the Reapers. They were more dangerous than the road warriors involved in illegal activities throughout the state. Yeah, it's them all right, said another man pointing at the screen. It's Clint Eastwood and Chuck Norris. The video was posted an hour ago from Pine Ridge. Ray smiled coldly. Interesting, very interesting. He was a tall, muscular man in his 40s, with a scar running down the left side of his face. He had spent time in prison and had a personal grudge against authority figures. Spike and his road warriors are a joke. Think they're tough, but they're just playing at being bad boys. We're the real deal. What are you thinking, Ray? Asked a man named Lou, Ray's right-hand man, thinking we pay a visit to Pine Ridge tonight. Show these Hollywood tough guys what real tough looks like. Ray stood up. Get the boys ready. We ride in 30 minutes. Back in Pine Ridge, Clint was in his motel room, sitting on the edge of the bed. He called his daughter on his cell phone to let her know he would be home tomorrow. Chuck was in the next room, doing push-ups despite his age. He believed in staying in shape, and even at 84, could do more push-ups than men half his age. Around midnight, both men were asleep. The motel was quiet. Bob Wilson had also gone to bed after watching the late news. The only sound was the occasional car passing on the main road. 3 trucks pulled into the motel parking lot. They parked near rooms 15 and 16. 8 men got out, led by Ray Davis. They moved quietly, checking to make sure no one was watching. Each man carried something: a baseball bat, a chain, brass knuckles. Ray himself had a knife in his boot. Which rooms? Lou whispered. The manager said 15 and 16, Ray replied. He had called the motel earlier, pretending to be a reporter looking for Clint Eastwood, who Bob, excited about his famous guests, had accidentally revealed their room numbers. Lou, you take Pete, Steve, and Matt. Go to room 16. The rest of you are with me. We'll take room 15. The men split into two groups. Ray's group approached room 15, where Clint was sleeping. Lou's group went to room 16, where Chuck was. Ray tried the door of room 15, but it was locked. He nodded to one of his men, who took out a tool to force the lock. Meanwhile, Lou was doing the same at room 16. Inside room 15, Clint's eyes opened. Even at 94, his hearing was still sharp. He had been a light sleeper all his life, a habit from his early days working different jobs before becoming an actor. He heard the slight sound at his door and knew something was wrong. In room 16, Chuck was also awake. Years of martial arts training had made him extremely aware of his surroundings, even when asleep. He sensed danger before he even heard the noise at his door. The lock of room 15 clicked open. Ray and his three men entered slowly, trying to be quiet. The room was dark, but they could see the shape of someone in the bed. Now, Ray whispered. The four men rushed forward, but the bed was empty. They had seen only pillows arranged to look like a sleeping person. Before they could react, the bathroom door opened. Clint stood there, fully dressed, had never gone to sleep at all, suspecting trouble might come after the incident at the bar. Looking for me? Clint asked in his raspy voice. At the same time, in room 16, Lou and his men had also managed to open the door. They entered, ready to attack the sleeping man. But the bed in this room was empty too. The window was open, curtains blowing in the night breeze. He's gone, Lou hissed. Check outside. As Lou turned to leave, the door closed behind him. Chuck Norris stood there, blocking the exit. Like Clint, he was fully dressed and had been waiting for trouble. Good evening, gentlemen, Chuck said calmly. Seems like you took a wrong turn. These aren't your rooms. Back in room 15, Ray and his men had recovered from their surprise. They spread out, surrounding Clint. Ray pulled out his knife. You think you're tough because you beat up some weekend bikers? Ray sneered. We're not playing games here, old man. We're the real thing. Clint didn't seem worried. Put the knife away, son. Nobody needs to get hurt here. Ray laughed. He's the only one getting hurt is you, Grandpa. One of Ray's men rushed forward, swinging a baseball bat at Clint. Despite his age, Clint moved with surprising speed. He sidestepped the swing and caught the bat with one hand. With a quick twist, he pulled the bat away and pushed the man off. Balance. The man stumbled into his friend, and both fell to the floor in room 16. Chuck was dealing with Lou and his three men. One swung a chain at Chuck's head. Chuck caught the chain around his forearm, then pulled sharply. The man flew forward, and Chuck met him with a palm strike to the chest that sent him crashing into the wall. The fight in both rooms was short but intense. In room 15, Clint used the baseball bat he had taken to block attacks, then struck back. With quick, precise movements. He had always been athletic, and even in his 90s, he knew how to handle himself. Ray slashed with his knife. But Clint stepped inside the swing and struck Ray's wrist with the bat. The knife fell to the floor. Clint followed up with a hard push that sent Ray stumbling backward through the open bathroom door. Ray tripped over the bathtub edge and fell in with a crash. In room 16, Chuck was using his martial arts training to devastating effect. He moved so fast that Lou's men couldn't land a single blow. One by one, they went down, knocked off their feet by Chuck's precise strikes and kicks. Lou tried to run, but Chuck caught him at the door. One quick sweep of Chuck's leg and Lou was on the floor, looking up at the martial arts master. Please, Lou gasped. Don't hurt me. I already did, Chuck said. But you'll live. A loud noise came from outside. Bob Wilson, the motel owner, had heard the commotion and fired his shotgun into the air. Police are on their way, he shouted. From the parking lot, they'll be here in 2 minutes. In room 15, Ray climbed out of the bathtub, soaking wet and angry. He looked at his men, who were groaning on the floor, then at Clint, who stood calmly, still holding the baseball bat. This isn't over, Ray growled. Yes, it is, Clint said firmly. police are coming. You can either be arrested for breaking and entering, assault, and whatever else they decide to charge you with, or you can leave now. Your choice." Ray Davis looked at Clint Eastwood, then at his men on the floor. In the distance, he could hear police sirens. He had been to prison before and didn't want to go back. "Let's go," he ordered his men. They scrambled to their feet and rushed out. Of the motel room, next door, Lou and his group were also hurrying to leave. Chuck Norris stood in the doorway, watching them go. The 8 men from the Reapers gang ran to their trucks, started the engines, and sped away into the night. They were already turning onto the main road when the first police car arrived at the motel. Sheriff Bill Parker was a tall man with gray hair and a serious face. He had been sheriff of Pine Ridge for 15 years. With him was his deputy, a young woman named Lisa Green. They got out of their police car and looked around the parking lot. Bob Wilson, the motel owner, came out to meet them, still holding his shotgun. "What's going on, Bob?" Sheriff Parker asked. "You said there was trouble?" "There was," Bob replied. "A gang broke into rooms 15 and 16, but you won't believe who's staying there." At that moment, Clint Eastwood and Chuck Norris walked out of their rooms. The sheriff's eyes widened in surprise. His deputy gasped. "Well, I'll be," Sheriff Parker said. "Mr. Eastwood and Mr. Norris, this is unexpected." "Evening, Sheriff Clint." Greeted him. "Sorry about the disturbance." Sheriff Parker shook his head in amazement. "No need to apologize." Bob called and said there was a break-in, but he didn't mention who the victims were. "We're fine," Chuck assured him. The intruders left when they heard the police were coming. Sheriff Parker took out a notebook. "Can you describe them? Or their vehicles?" 3 pickup trucks, Clint said. Dark colors. 8 men total. Their leader had a scar on his face. The sheriff nodded. "Sounds like Ray Davis and his gang, the Reapers. They operate out of River Junction. Been trying to catch them for months, but they're slippery." "They seem to have a problem with us," Chuck explained. "Apparently, they saw a video of an incident at the Western Saloon earlier tonight." "Yeah, I heard about that." Sheriff Parker smiled slightly. "The whole town's talking about how you two handled the Road Warriors. Guess Ray didn't like seeing his competition get shown up." Deputy Green was still staring at the 2 legends. "I can't believe it's really you," she finally said. "My dad had posters of both of you on his wall when I was growing up." Clint and Chuck smiled politely. They were used to this reaction from people. "We should take your statements," Sheriff Parker said. "And I'll have a patrol car stay here for the rest of the night, just in case they come back." "I don't think they will," Clint said. They seemed pretty eager to leave. After giving their statements to the sheriff, Clint and Chuck went back to their rooms. The excitement was over, and they needed rest. But neither man slept much that night. Both kept alert, just in case the Reapers decided to return despite the police presence. Morning came with bright sunshine and clear blue skies. Clint and Chuck met for breakfast in the motel's small dining area. Bob Wilson had put out extra pastries and the best coffee he could find. He wanted his famous guests to have a good meal before they left. "Sleep well?" Chuck asked Clint as they sat at a table. "By the window?" "Not really," Clint admitted. He kept one eye open. "Same here," Chuck said. "But I don't think they'll be back, not with the police watching the place." As they ate, Sheriff Parker entered the dining area. He nodded to Bob, then came over to their table. "Morning, gentlemen. Mind if I join you?" "Please do," Chuck gestured. To an empty chair, the sheriff sat down. "I wanted to let you know, we spotted those trucks heading back to River Junction. Put out an alert to the state police, but they're probably lying low for now." "Good to know," Clint said. "Also," Sheriff Parker continued, "I received some interesting news this morning. The Road Warriors motorcycle gang showed up at the River Junction police station. They're giving statements about Ray Davis and his gang. Apparently the Road Warriors have decided to turn over a new leaf." Chuck raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Yes," the sheriff smiled. "Their leader, Spike, said they had a life-changing experience last night that made them rethink their path. Said they met 2 men who taught them about real strength and respect. I'm guessing that was you too." Clint and Chuck exchanged glances. Neither had expected their encounter with the bikers to have such an effect. "That's good to hear," Clint said quietly. The sheriff nodded. "The information they're providing could help us finally build a case against Ray and the Reapers." Those guys are into some serious illegal activities. This could be the break we needed. After the sheriff left, Clint and Chuck finished their breakfast in thoughtful silence. Then they went to check out of the motel. Bob refused to take their money. "After what you did last night, the rooms are on the house?" he insisted. "You protected my property and probably saved me a lot of damage. It's the least I can do." Outside in the parking lot, a small crowd had gathered. Word had spread that Clint Eastwood and Chuck Norris were in town, and people wanted to see them before they left. Among the crowd were Mary Johnson from the Western Saloon and several of the locals who had been there the night before, as Clint and Chuck walked to their vehicles. People applauded. Someone asked for autographs, and soon both men were signing papers, napkins, and even a couple of DVD cases that people had brought from home. A young boy, about 10 years old, approached Chuck. "My dad says you're the toughest man in the world." He said, "Is that true?" Chuck smiled and knelt down to the boy's level. "No, that's not true," he said gently. "Being tough isn't about fighting or looking strong. It's about doing the right thing, even when it's hard. It's about helping others and standing up for what's good. Remember that." The boy nodded seriously. "I will." Finally, it was time to leave. Clint and Chuck said their goodbyes and got into their vehicles, Clint in his truck, Chuck in his SUV, as they prepared to drive away. A motorcycle roared into the parking lot. It was Spike, the leader of the Road Warriors. He was alone and wore a simple jean jacket instead of his leather one with the gang patches. Spike got off his bike and walked over to where Clint and Chuck were parked. People watched nervously, but there was no tension this time. "I wanted to catch you before you left," Spike said. "Just wanted to say thanks again for last night and to let you know I meant what I said. We're done with the Road Warriors. I turned in my patches this morning." "What will you do now?" Chuck asked. Spike smiled. "Going back to school, believe it or not. Always wanted to be a teacher. Just got sidetracked for a while." "It's never too late to change direction," Clint said. Spike nodded. "That's what you showed me last night. Both of you. It's not about how hard you can hit, but about making the right choices." He held out his hand. "Safe travels." Clint and Chuck shook his hand, then started their engines. As they drove away from Pine Ridge, they could see people waving in their rearview mirrors. What had started as a simple stop for dinner had turned into something much more meaningful. "Think he'll really become a teacher?" Chuck asked over the phone as they drove. "Maybe," Clint replied. "Stranger things have happened. Like two old-timers taking on 16 guys in one night." Chuck laughed. "Something like that?" Clint chuckled. "See you around, Chuck. See you around, Clint." The two legends continued on their separate ways, leaving behind a town full of people with an incredible story to tell, a story that would be passed down for years to come. A story about two Hollywood icons who prove that real heroes don't just exist on the movie screen, that age is just a number when it comes to standing up for what's right, and somewhere on the road ahead, a former biker named Spike was riding toward a new life, carrying with him the most important lesson of all: it's never too late to change your path and become the person you were meant to be.